The following is an original production of AZPM News.
For AZPM, I'm Mark McLemore, and this is Arizona Spotlight. Coming up, the president and founder of StoryCorps, Dave Isay, tells us about their new initiative, Connect 250. What some visitors to the Paul and Alice Baker Center for Public Media have to say about our nation's 250th birthday. Visit the Sea of Cortez to meet a biologist and solar sailor who's working to save the local ecosystem. And how the Reid Park Zoo is conserving water closer to home. Those stories are next on Arizona Spotlight. StoryCorps was founded in 2003 and is dedicated to collecting the stories of everyday people and preserving them in the Library of Congress as a vast collection of oral histories. I've had the pleasure of working alongside the mobile recording teams from StoryCorps, and AZPM was one of a handful of public stations around the country to play a major role in One Small Step, a 2018 initiative designed to help Americans overcome political divide. Next, I'll speak with Dave Isay, StoryCorps' founder and president.
People want to be heard and be treated with respect. You know, one of the taglines of StoryCorps has always been listening is an act of love. It's looking someone in the eye and letting them know how much you mean to them by asking them the most important questions that you can ask. People think of, when they participate in StoryCorps, they often think of it as, if I had their 40-minute sessions, if I had 40 minutes left to live, what would I say to my grandmother? What would I ask my grandmother? So they're very intense conversations, as you know.
So explain to our listeners what Connect 250 is about.
This whole idea is about 6 weeks old, and the folks at StoryCorps, like the many folks who you've met, were feeling a little bit like what was happening for the 250th of the country was not built to last. And we wanted to do something that was special and had this idea to create a platform that's going to make it possible for us to have a time capsule of American voices. It's strangers coming together on this platform, which is a little bit like a dating app, and meeting a stranger and having that StoryCorps 40-minute conversation with that person, and then hitting end and it going to the Library of Congress. And on our 350th, what do we want our great-great-great-grandchildren to know about us? We're trying to create something that tells us who we really are as Americans. I'm really excited about this. We've had thousands and thousands of people sign up already. You sign up at connect250.org. So there are no politics involved in this at all. It's just a completely human conversation. It's not about bridging divides politically. But when you go into this system, you enter your name and where you live, and you write a little bio of yourself, very similar to a bio of yourself. And then you're in a platform where you see 5 names, first name, where they live, in a bio. And if you see someone you're interested to talk to, you pick them. And you go to a secure text platform and you text back and forth to pick the time. And then when the appointed time comes, you show up on a protected video screen and you have this StoryCorps conversation with the StoryCorps questions scrolling at the bottom. And you come in maybe a little bit nervous and you come out with a friend.
What does your instinct to tell you that Connect 250 might reveal about Americans?
I think that what Connect 250 is going to reveal is the truth that StoryCorps has revealed over the last 23 years, that people are basically good. StoryCorps, when it travels around with the Airstream trailer, we've had, 1,000 facilitators. If you ask them what they've learned, to a person, they give a version of the Anne Frank quote that people are basically good. StoryCorps, I hope, someday will be America's empathy machine, and a machine that reminds us of the basic goodness of our neighbors and that we have nothing to be scared of.
Well, Dave, I say one last question for you. When I first met a StoryCorps team, they were traveling in an Airstream trailer that had been turned into a mobile recording studio. And I found out that Airstream trailer was named Studs Terkel after one of my favorite authors. And I'm just curious, I know there have been some updates to your equipment recently. Is the Airstream trailer, known as Studs, is it still in action?
That's a heartbreaking question. And Studs is the person who actually invented the term oral history, and cut the ribbon on our first booth, not a mobile booth, in Grand Central Terminal when we opened up 23 years ago and passed away. I think he might have been 97 or 98 when he died. There was the rescission of Corporation for Public Broadcasting money that happened earlier this year, and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting had supported our mobile booths over the 22 years that we had been running them. And sadly, we had to pull Studs off the road and our other mobile booth. But we are undeterred. I mean, every public radio station in the country took a hit. We took a big hit. But this work of reminding us of our best angels and who we really are has to continue. So we are just building back, and we'll build back better. And someday Studs will be back on the road.
That was a very touching story, Dave. Thank you for sharing that with me and with our listeners.
Thank you, Mark.
I spoke with Dave Isay, the president and founder of StoryCorps. The new initiative, Connect 250, will become active on July 7th, but you can sign up now. There's a link to get started on the Spotlight page at azpm.org. The day this show was being recorded, AZPM held a live Arizona Spotlight taping at our new home, the Paul and Alice Baker Center for Public Media. The event theme was Tucson is Listening. It included poetry, storytelling, and some interviews. After speaking with Dave Isay about StoryCorps' new project, Connect 250, I asked some visitors to AZPM about this year's 4th of July and its special significance. Hi, can you tell me your first name, please?
Don.
How long have you been in Tucson?
5 years.
Okay. What brought you
It's
to...
their fault.
As he points angrily at his friends or family, I don't know.
Family. They have been telling us for years, come here so we can take care of you when you get old. Well, we're thinking of getting old.
Yeah, I was wondering if you were planning on that. Have you ever heard StoryCorps before?
Yes.
Have you ever done StoryCorps?
No.
As a listener, what is the takeaway that you've had from StoryCorps one way or another? Do you remember being touched by a moment you heard, or?
Probably the heart-rending stories.
Would you consider doing something like going online and meeting a stranger?
Probably not.
Okay. What do you think about the 250th? I mean, because, I am old enough to remember the bicentennial, and patriotism was everywhere. People were wearing red, white, and blue, and there was nothing ironic about it, right? It was all genuine patriotism.
It's gone. Basically, that's pretty much it. The patriotism is in the eye of the beholder, and not all the eyes are the same.
And your name, please?
Jackie.
So you've heard StoryCorps before?
Yeah, I've
on
listened.
NPR.
Mm-hmm.
And what's something that you've taken away from that experience? Can you think of anything that's
The personal stories that people come on and tell. Sometimes I'm driving and weeping. Sometimes I'm laughing. Sometimes, it's incredible. I love it when I'm hearing it. Yeah.
Due to losing their CPB funding, they can no longer afford to send the trailers around like they used to. So they're starting a new initiative called Connect 250 here in July. And the idea is people will sign up almost like a dating app, but your privacy is protected, but you have the opportunity to have a StoryCorps style interview, conversation with another person. Would that be something you would ever consider doing?
No.
My name is Michael.
How long have you been in Tucson?
I was born here, raised on the East Coast, and I've been here on and off since 91.
Have you ever heard StoryCorps on an NPR station?
I certainly have, yeah.
And what's your takeaway from hearing some of those? Is there anything that sticks in your mind or a particular way it makes you feel when you know that StoryCorps is coming up?
I am a huge fan of recording stories from people's experience. I'm actually working on a documentary on my stepfather. I would like to spend most of my time recording stories from people. So I really get excited when I hear the StoryCorps is coming on and to hear actually authentic voices from specific region that we're in.
Because of CPB funding cuts, StoryCorps can no longer afford to send their mobile recording booths around the country like they used to. So they are developing an online platform. It'll go live on July 7th, And it's a little bit like a dating app, but everyone's privacy is secure and there's no cameras. You can pick another person who signed up, and they have already a couple of hundred who have, and you have a 40-minute StoryCorps conversation. And there are prompts available at the bottom of the screen, the StoryCorps questions that they often rely on. As soon as you are happy with what you've got and you press end, it goes right to the Library of Congress.
That's fantastic. How fun. That actually really opens it up, too, to have it be online. Because, when you're talking about doing a documentary, that's a lot of work, a lot of equipment. But if it's just an audio recording, it'd be a lot less invasive, and probably I would be able to get more people recorded, and I would definitely be interested in participating in that project.
Those were the voices of just a few of the many friends and members of AZPM who attended a live taping of Arizona Spotlight on Friday, June 26th. You'll get to hear the results next week. For me, my love of public broadcasting started back when I was a kid in the 1970s, and the many documentaries that PBS offered about Jacques Cousteau and the crew of the Calypso. So when Tony Paniagua told me he wanted to speak with Paul Hamilton, a biologist, author, and sailor who currently spends his time studying the Sea of Cortez on a research vessel that's about 50 feet long and 20 feet wide, I wanted to hear more.
Paul Hamilton, thank you very much for joining us.
Well, pleasure to be here.
You had earned your doctoral degree at Arizona State University. What brought you to Tucson, and then when did you decide to take off and explore the Sea of Cortez?
After living up in the Phoenix area and looking south towards Tucson, I could tell that it was a much better fit for me culturally. Of course, the natural wonders right around Tucson. Yeah, just really enjoy still spending time in Tucson and enjoy the people there. And then in 2018, I've always been interested in the Sea of Cortez, and grew up listening to Jacques Cousteau and all of that. He called this place the world's aquarium, quite high praise. And eventually figured out we needed a boat to be able to really explore it, and that was back in 2018.
Why don't you tell us about that boat? It's called Triple Fin, and it's named after a fish, which I didn't know about. And what do you particularly like about that specific craft that you're using?
Yeah, well, it's a big, stable platform with a number of beds, so we can take teams of researchers or artists or journalists, whoever out here. It turns out to be a great platform for going solar. And so we pulled out our diesel engine a few years ago and replaced it with an electric engine. We took down one of our masts, our mizzen mast, the little one that used to be in the back, and just put up a bunch of solar panels back there. So right now on the boat, we have more solar capacity than my home back in Tucson. That allows us to motor wherever we want to take the boat in the Sea of Cortez. We could potentially for 24 hours straight just on solar. So the boat has been completely unplugged and no fossil fuels have been used on the boat. I have a counter going 900 days now. So we're very much self-sufficient here.
And you are taking different groups of people. Let's just begin with one of them, researchers. What type of research is going on down there right now?
Yeah, we've worked with a number of researchers in different things, doing animal counts, looking at dolphins and whales, doing hydrophone recordings, and also looking at eDNA or environmental DNA, where you take a water sample and then run some genetic analyses on it to see what has been in the water recently. So it's a very powerful tool for taking a water sample at a coral reef and detecting all of the different species that are there, even the ones that you wouldn't be able to find by just looking for them. So those are a few of the examples of the science projects that we've done.
Why don't you describe the accommodations on your boat and how comfortable are they? For example, somebody who dreams of being on a boat for many years and exploring beautiful natural places, dramatic as the Sea of Cortez.
Glamorous isn't one of the words I would really use, at least with the budget I'm working with. But it is just an incredibly privileged experience to be here working on this boat, and I can share the rooms here with 6 people comfortably, or more if they're willing to sleep outside. It is a multi-hull. Instead of just having one hull, we have 3, or catamarans have 2. And that makes it very comfortable to move and to live in. As opposed to monohull sailboats, which have to, for instance, tip completely over, or not completely over, but tip far over if they're under sail, and get really sloshy when they're out at sea or at anchor.
Paul, many people here in Arizona are familiar with places like Rocky Point, Puerto Peñasco, San Carlos, Bahia, Quino, on the Sea of Cortez, so that maybe they've gone to the beach, they've done a little bit of sailing, a little bit of exploring. But what would you like to say about the Sea of Cortez as far as the magnitude of this area and what you've come across throughout the years?
Well, for one thing, it's incredibly varied within the Gulf. So here along the coast of San Carlos and up to Rocky Point, there is a lot of industrial fishing. So there's a lot of trawlers, purse seiners, also a fair amount of artisanal fishing. There's a big amount of biodiversity that's just missing here on this whole coast of Sonora. And so, for instance, sharks are just incredibly rare here. And you go to the other side on the Baja side, and there are also areas that are hit very hard by various things. There is more intact and protected ecosystems.
And how would you describe the current status of the Gulf itself when it comes to how well or poorly it's being protected?
Yeah, and that is incredibly variable depending on where you're looking. So a good case study is I spend a lot of time with triple fin near the town of Loreto in Baja Sur. The local community of 30,000 people have risen up and protested and gotten a huge movement, over 1 million people on board, with keeping the cruise ships out of Loreto Bay National Park. Now, this is incredibly important because it's also one of the few places in the world where you can reliably see blue whales, and that drives their tourism industry. So me and some of our colleagues down here have used science in taking hydrophone recordings of the cruise ships as they came in and comparing that to hydrophone recordings of the blue whales. And they overlap a lot. The sounds are very damaging to blue whales, and now we have some data behind that. And that helped, in a small way, feed the overall push to get cruise ships out of the park, and that was recently successful. So triple fin played a small role in getting the Loreto Bay National Park protected and its blue whale safe.
Moving forward, are there any other major programs or plans or efforts that we should be aware of here in Southern Arizona?
There are many, and the next big fight is the plan to make natural gas pipelines from Texas and Southern Arizona going across the border down into the Gulf in various ports down here. And that would that natural gas would be loaded to tankers that would then go through the Gulf, and in some really fragile areas as well, where a spill or a ship sinking or anything like that would be just absolutely catastrophic. So there's also a big movement to keep that from happening, and also, to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels. We're doing what we can on that, and we have some video work coming up this summer that will help document where these big LNG or natural gas tankers would be going through and the ecosystems that would be at risk there.
That was Tony Paniagua speaking to biologist, author, and solar sailor Paul Hamilton, who was on board the research vessel Triple Fin in the Sea of Cortez near San Carlos, Sonora. Closer to home, the Reid Park Zoo is using a new way of looking at water conservation, and it could help save as much as 1 million gallons in the coming year. Laura Holansky reports.
A drop of water goes a long way in the desert, and Reid Park Zoo is saving a significant amount of it through a pool of initiatives, starting at the flamingo habitat. I joined Katie Runnels, Life Support System Lead Technician, and Erin Gleason, Director of Conservation and Education at the zoo.
This pool is pretty shallow, so we did start to have a lot of algae growth happen. As the algae kind of matured and set in, it's really hard to get rid of those spores. And so they were having to drain and clean this pool almost every month at one point. So what we ended up actually doing after a long set of things that we tried to help with the algae, we ended up turning this into a saltwater pool. So this is about 8 ppt or parts per thousand of salinity, which is pretty low. The ocean generally is like 32. So it's a little bit more natural for the flamingos since they do live in salt flats, but it's also helped our algae problem.
And is it better for just water conservation efforts too, so you don't have to clean it as much as the regular water?
Exactly, yeah. So now we're only having to clean it maybe every like 5 to 6 months as opposed to every month. And this is a 7,500 gallon pool. We're saving like 2.5 times the amount of water having it be salt water as opposed to previously. So we're saving a lot of water. It's like somewhere over 60,000 gallons a year just with this pool.
How do you basically choose if it's going to be saltwater pools for the animals or just natural, pond water or whatever?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of zoos and aquariums kind of look at the natural history of the animal. So obviously there's fish that have to live in salt water. There's no other option. But as far as here at Reid Park, that was kind of my solution that I came up with for the algae problem. I did a lot of research on the internet. And while it's hard to find research about animal pools, you can find a lot out there about human swimming pools. And a lot of human swimming pools will have like a salt cell. So it's still using chlorine, but there's like a salt generator that you can install that helps kind of mitigate your algae issues.
And did you say this was one of the biggest parts of the water saving efforts?
Yes. Yes, for sure. Because like I said, we were having to drop and clean this pool almost every month there for a little while, just because of how bad the algae was. It would be maybe 3 days and you couldn't see the bottom of the pool at all.
When it comes to the water saving efforts, do you run the numbers each year to see where you can maybe chip a little and save, or how does it work at the zoo?
That was actually the first time I had ever ran the numbers. Previous to me taking this position, life support didn't exist at the zoo. The keepers were taking care of all their pump systems. There wasn't somebody specialized looking at all of this information. So myself and my coworker that I work really closely with, just over the past 3 years, have been able to kind of learn what exists already and learn how we can make it better. And because we've improved the systems, using new media, getting better filters, getting better pumps, we've been able to increase our filtration rates and kind of make the filtration better, so the keepers are not having to dump and clean their pools as often.
And just in general, where is the water coming from? What kind of water does the zoo use?
So for the pools, it's potable city water. But we do use reclaimed water for almost all of our irrigation, if not all of our irrigation. And the reclaimed water is through the city as well. And then there's city lines that go under the zoo, and we tie those in for our irrigation. So it's recycled water that is filtered, but it's not filtered to the standard of drinking water.
As far as numbers go, do you know approximately how much water does the zoo use as a whole per year? Looking at saving water, what are some of the goals that is attainable for the zoo?
My goal as the director of conservation is really to show people what we're doing and help inspire, motivate, and just instruct. If you're interested in doing this yourself, there's a lot that you can do to save water, which also saves money. And we need to share the water that exists with the plants and animals that are here naturally.
I wonder if this zoo specifically uses more water than other zoos in the nation just because it's in such a dry area. And I assume, grass needs more water here.
Again, it really depends on how the water systems are tied in with the local water provider. Certainly, we are a greener area, but A lot of the plants we have here are native or dry adapted, and we're trying to increase that amount. Again, we're a zoo, so we're trying to also give the ambiance of whatever part of the zoo you're in, whether you're in South America or Africa or whatever. But we're certainly not planting high water demand plants. We're really looking at what's available in our native ecosystem and maybe looking at plants that are native to those particular regions but wouldn't be invasive. So
we also kind of limit the amount of grass we have. We do have grass like in some of the habitats for the animals, but as far as like public areas, really we only have one space that has grass in it, and they switch the type of grass seasonally to make sure that we are able to kind of limit that water usage as well.
Well, I've started here in November, so I'm still at the beginning of figuring out what we can share. I'm learning from Katie as we speak here. Putting it on the website to start with. Would love to put up some signs so that people who are curious can read about it as they're standing here admiring, say, the flamingos. We have in the past worked with various organizations to hold workshops to help people understand what they can do, that this is very much within reach, it's very affordable, and in the long run, or even pretty short run, it will save you money because, of course, every cup of water that comes through your faucet you're paying for, and a lot of people are moving into the desert not really understanding or appreciating yet where they are and what they can do to take part in making sure that the desert is here for a long time to come. 2 years ago, we had a water audit done on more of the kind of human plumbing. That resulted in us changing out a lot of the toilets and a lot of the sink faucets. And the estimate is that it saved us over 640,000 gallons of water a year. And if you have the price per gallon of water from the city, we could quickly estimate how much that is in water savings. Again, as a city facility, we're tied into that system, so I can't give you that number exactly, but you could do a back of the envelope and realize that is a lot of money and it's a lot of water saved. We have 5 water bottle fillers around the zoo. We do not sell bottled water here. For a number of reasons. So folks who come to the zoo, definitely bring your own water bottles. Those were installed about a year ago, and we have counters on them. As of almost 2 months ago, it saved us 53,287 water bottles. So those 53,000 water bottles that did not wind up in the landfill, did not wind up in the desert somewhere, littering the streets and parks of Tucson. So we're very excited about that.
I spoke with Katie Runnels, Life Support Systems Lead Technician, and Erin Gleason, Director of Conservation and Education. For Arizona Spotlight, this is Laura Holansky.
Thank you for listening to Arizona Spotlight. This show is a production of AZPM and is posted weekly at azpm.org. The production engineer is Jim Blackwood. I'm producer and host Mark McLemore.
This has been an original production of AZPM News.